Hey, this is the Hard Truth with Tony Shaffer, powered by 6 Hour. I had a choice of what I carried in combat. I always carried the best. You should carry the best. The best is 6 Hour. What do I got today? Well, I had out, because I was using it, didn't shoot it, but I had to have it, my P320, 3 P220, sorry, Sig, Legion 45, carry, the special edition carry, which I carry. Ha! Works out well, works out brilliantly. Never settle. Get SIG. We are on the America Out Loud Talk Radio Network and their podcast network. Check them out. Check us out. We are Project Sentinel, projectsentinel.com. On X, we are PRJ_Sentinel. Works out well that way. And Perry, boy, I'm hitting things that over here that I shouldn't. That's my predictive pickle, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, and here are the past shows at thehardtruthwithtony.com. Also, I am wearing Cherie Curry's T-shirt. This is from Cherie and Marie. There they are. Cherie does our theme and bumper music. We love you, Cherie. As the time we're taping this, they're going to have their 65th birthday at Whiskey A Go-Go. So if you ain't at the Go-Go, you're not where you should be. You should be at the Go-Go with them on the 1st of November, celebrating. John Ford Coley, a bunch of other great folks going to be there as well. To include me, I'll be there. So anyway, check that out too. Anyway, we love you, Cherie. Thank you for allowing us to use your music. Without further ado, today we're going to be talking about a topic which I think perplexes a lot of people. It perplexes me, and I'm a think tank guy. And man, am I ever perplexed? Although I think it comes with the territory. So today we have the author of My Brother's Keeper, Guy. How do you pronounce your last name so I don't screw it up?
Golan.
Golan, just the basic Golan. Guy Golan, My Brother's Keeper, and he is here to talk about issues relating to the Jewish faith, the Jewish people, and why I think there's some. I can't speak to the fact that there's obviously disagreements within the Jews, within Israel and everything else. I can only speak to my experience. So, Guy, I'm going to ask you some questions because I used to work for a guy named Dr. Herb London. I explained this a little bit in the pre-interview. Dr. London was a man of faith. He believed in he was a Jew. He honored their traditions. He honored their holidays. When he died, it was done the Jewish way. But he was a conservative, and he was kind of alone, like a super minority. He ran the London Center for Policy Research, which I eventually took over when he passed. And it was in New York. And a lot of folks in New York are Jewish, but they're not conservative. So, Guy, one of the things I just want to ask you out of the gate is, as we look at today's political landscape, it seems to me that the Jews are less than I have to be careful with my words because I don't want to offend anybody, but at the same time, I want it to be made very clear. I don't understand how Jews don't invest more in their own security. So, Guy, welcome to the Hard Truth. Talk about your book and tell us a little bit about what's going on in the overall direction of the Jewish faith regarding American Jews and what's going on and all that.
Well, thanks, Tony. Well, the Jewish people live all around the world, but they have two main centers. One of them is in Israel. One of them is in the United States. And we have roughly about the same kind of population, 7 million roughly in both of those countries of Jews. The two centers of Jewish life could not be more different than one another.
Yeah.
Israeli Jews are a majority in their own country. American Jews are a minority within their own country. Because of that, the two groups have a completely different political and social psychology, and this is what our book is all about.
Interesting. So that's a great way of framing it, because clearly, if you're in Israel, you're being shot at. I mean, people are trying to kill you, and and I guess, well, in a way, people are trying to kill you in New York too, but it's different. I mean, if you walk down right now, and New York's unsafe, just saying, but it's interesting because I think, do you believe then the proximity to violence affects differently the Jewish folks in Israel versus the folks in New York?
Absolutely. When you grow up in a tough neighborhood, such as the Middle East, life looks very different than when you grow up in the comfort of the United States. Now, even with all the craziness on college campuses and all the new form of violence against the Jews we've seen in North America, for the most part, the United States has been absolute safety haven for Jews for the last 100 years. So
Right.
the Jews who live in the United States never really experience a threat to their lives, and therefore they can live in a much more idealistic world than people who live in the Middle East, and where reality really dictates and sets your political worldview.
So yeah, and that's one of the things that I don't understand. And I'll be blunt, I don't understand why there's certain groups out to kill Jews. I mean, I've come up. I went to high school in Lisbon, Portugal, around an international community. Um, I went to Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. Studied political science, environmental studies, got degrees. Had Jewish friends. Joined the military. I've come up, worked with all denominations, and I still don't understand the anger and hate for Jews. I don't. I don't get it at all. I don't remotely get it. As a matter of fact, I don't understand the Nazi hate. I never got World War II. I mean, I got it. We had to win it, but I never understood the Jews being made scapegoats. I've never understood that. I've never understood the Arab and Persian hate. Well, Sunni Shia hate for the Jews, the overall Islamic hate. And then now, I'm just going to be blunt, the Democrat Party and their hate for the Jews. I mean, they've become anti-Semitic, and they don't even hide it anymore. What? Why is it? And I'm asking with sincerity, why is it we have such hate in some of these groups for and that you got either people like Trump and me? It's like we're on board with y'all. We're we want to help. Why is there such a spectrum of folks who really do want to kill your people?
Well, it's a very complicated question, Tony. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the fact that the United States has never had anti-Semitism from its government, and so
No.
there was never any institutional anti-Semitism in the United States. That is a very, very different case than in Europe, right? So
Yeah.
in Europe, killing the Jews, burning down their villages, and raping their women was a national sport for hundreds of years,
Don't
all
get it, but
across
yeah, I
all
know.
across
You're
Europe.
right.
But this is not the case in the U.S. The U.S. is a wonderful place for Jews, and American Jews are, as we say in one of our chapters, American Jews are as American as apple pie. So
Yeah.
the U.S. has always been great to the Jews, and still today, the majority of Americans are pro-Jewish and pro-Israel.
Right.
And even within the Democratic Party, Tony, the majority of people are. I mean, the American Jewish voters are 70% in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
They are a really, really important pillar of the Democratic coalition. Yes, there is the new anti-Semitism that is coming from the progressive movement. So going back to your question about college campuses,
Yeah.
and where did this come from? Like, I went to NYU back in the day. I went to the University of Florida for my undergrad. I would never even imagine a day when Jews would not be allowed to go on a college campus. Like they were not allowed to go on UCLA's campus last year, and Columbia universities,
Yeah.
right?
And Dr.
So,
Dr. London taught it in NYU, by the way. Just saying.
So,
Yeah.
this brand new anti-Semitism, the roots of it is from the whole far progressive left. The critical culture, the critical cultural, post-colonial outlook that really divides the world into oppressed and oppressors. And in this narrative, Israel is the oppressor of the indigenous Arab people.
Yeah.
This whole critical cultural paradigm lacks any historical knowledge, no background, no understanding
Right.
of the world, and not understanding that most Israelis are indigenous to the Middle East. Half of Israelis come from countries like Iraq and Yemen and Egypt. So Jews have always lived in the Middle East. They always lived in Israel, and there's archaeological evidence of Jews being there for thousands of years. This is now the narrative the students learn on college campuses.
I know. So, how long has Jerusalem been around as a city? Just asking.
Well, I don't remember the exact date, but
It's
thousands of years. Yeah,
about so.
when you
I think
walk in Jerusalem, you're walking to some old stones.
that's what I'm saying. It's like I think it's in the name, right? Jerusalem, 1,000 years. Like, how do we not get that? It's like it's in the name. It's in Jerusalem. It's like they've been there thousands of years. I think it's named after the Jews. That means they were there first. And yeah, basic facts like we're discussing now is completely ignored by the political left. Well, let's go down that path a little bit more then, because so many things I see of today's political left have no basis in reality. As a matter of fact, uh, it's more Marxism than practical understanding of history. The Marxists, as you probably know, and I studied some of this in college as a political scientist. Marxism is all about divide and conquer. Basically, you create conditions for groups to hate each other, and you use that hate to control the population. And it seems to me, obviously, the old Soviet Union, they hated the Jews. You brought it up. You know, the Europeans, as a sport, would go after the Jews and do things. The Soviets were no better in the beginning than the Nazis. It's just they weren't as obvious about it, I would argue. But at the same time, that all kind of faded after World War II. Well, it's come back. It's come back with a vengeance, and in so many ways, it now affects our political system that in a way that is very obvious. I mean, Ocasio Cortez, man, oh man. I mean, Bernie Sanders is Jewish and he's anti-Jewish. I mean, how is it that we now see, and how is it then? My second question: the Jewish folks don't just leave the Democrat Party for essentially a party that would embrace them. Why is it they're reluctant to leave the Democrat reservation?
Well, because the Democratic Party is the home of the Jewish voters, the American Jewish voters. I mean,
Hmm.
ever since the days of FDR,
Right,
the American Jews always found safety within the Democratic Party. And, American Jews view themselves as a minority within a Christian nation. So for them, it's really important to build coalitions and be accepted by others. This is not
right,
something that Israeli Jews ever think about because we are a majority in our own nation.
yeah.
But Tony, there's something even bigger here, and that is uh, the American Jews don't vote based on Israel. American Jews
No, they don't.
view themselves first and foremost as Americans,
Right.
and second and foremost as liberal people, democratic people. So if you look at the upcoming election, somewhere American Jews always vote somewhere between 70 to 80% for Democratic nominees. So I'll just give you some examples.
Please.
They voted very high numbers for Al Gore. When Barack Obama ran the first time, he actually received a very large percentage of American Jewish vote. He received 78%. The second time he ran, he received 68%, right? So the range for American Jews and the Democrats is between 70 to 80%. This is
Wow.
the second most consistent voting bloc for the Democratic Party outside of African Americans. So American Jews will always be a part of the Democratic coalition because most American Jews are not very religious. Most of them are not very involved in Jewish life. American Jews have higher rates of being, secular, agnostic, so forth. One of the highest in the country, and their Jewish identity, for the most part, is secondary. Now, the other 30% of American Jews who do vote Republican, what you're going to see there is higher levels of religiosity and religious identity.
Interesting, because I did find obviously some Jews who I'm still very close friends with were conservatives, but they're very devout to the faith too. And that's interesting you should mention that because so what you're saying then is that the folks who are on in the Democrat Party are more open to social issues relating to American society than they are the interest of their own faith and preservation of the Jewish state. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the progressive movement, American Jews have always been not only involved in it, they led it. So
Yeah.
you look at labor rights, civil rights, gay rights, trans rights, fighting Islamophobia. Like every single one of those, American Jews are at the forefront of it.
Yeah.
So
Well, listen.
that's
Yeah. Go
that's
ahead. I'm
her
sorry.
primary identity.
Yeah. Well, I want to hit let's hit Islamophobia because that's
Mhm.
something that we talk about a lot here because I work with believe it or not, I am very close to Islamic groups in England, the Association of British Muslims. Hey, Mohammed, shout out to you, who are working to create conditions for understanding and basically removing violence from Islam. So, they were a big fan of the Abraham Accords. I work with them on anti-violence issues all the time as best I can. They're in England where I'm not, but we have a very good relationship. And the idea here is not everybody believes that violence is the way to do this. But that's the issue that I think we face is that the Jewish state faces violence constantly, and it's not fiction. It's not like Islamophobia. Now, I've always been fascinated. It's like not all of it, we tar all of Islam by saying they have violence. Like no, there's elements of Islam which hate Islam. I mean, don't I always point out the Sunni Shia split, and that they want to kill each other, and it goes back to the beginning of the religion. The basic understanding is, and I think this is the thing that I point all the time, more more individuals of Islamic faith are killed by radical Islam than any other group. They kill themselves, and it's like it's not being Islamophobic to point out the foibles in their own religion. So it's one of the things that we hit all the time. But with that said, I know. Oh, by the way, genocide. Let's talk about the genocide. So I always find it fascinating that you've got about 9 million people in, between 8 and 9 million people in Israel, and you got 400 million Arabs. So do you really think, Guy, that 8 million people are going to eradicate 400 million? Does that sound like a genocide to you?
No, I mean, listen, the whole anybody who claims genocide simply they don't know what they're talking about. I mean,
Right.
if Israel is engaged in genocide against Palestinians, why is it that the population of Palestinians has only gone up in the last 5 decades?
Exactly.
Right. Now,
Precisely.
Tony, there has been genocide in Syria.
Yes.
More than half a million Syrian Sunnis were killed during the Syrian civil war by Bashar al-Assad and the Russians. I don't recall any of the same people who are protesting today protesting during the Syrian civil war.
No. No, not at all. And by the way, they didn't protest during the Green Revolution in Iran back in 2009. No, no, silence. And by the way, I thought we're supposed to support people who want to throw off the yoke of extreme theocracy. That's what I thought. And by the way, last time I checked, the mullahs want to kill the Jews, right? So why wouldn't you want to support that revolution? It's quite peculiar, Guy, of who they support and they don't support. So, and it seems like they don't support the good guys at all. And I want to hit that Netanyahu. I think he's a good guy. I think he's doing the right things. A lot of people are very critical. The Bush administration. I mean, that's a slip. The Biden administration. Sorry, I don't mean to slip back into bad habits, but the Biden administration seems to really be talking out of both sides of its mouth at the same time, where sanctions relief and freeing up frozen assets of the Iranians has enriched them probably between 40 to 50 billion dollars over the last few years, probably a bit more than that. China's buying a lot of their oil, so they're making a lot of money. That money then is invested. I guess investment is a good word to use. Back in terror, they are the largest state sponsor of terror, and boy, oh boy, did they get that money and use it with Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthi, and are all shooting at Israel. All three are out there, lobbing things your way. So, I'm confused by the fact that at the same time the Biden administration gave this money, now we're sending THAAD high altitude missiles to defend, which I'm all for. 100 U.S. troops going to be deployed. By the way, you and I both know that's significant by the fact you're going to have U.S. forces directly on Jewish soil engaged against Iran. I think it's a headline. But why is it we have such duality of purpose here? I don't get it, because we're funding both ends of this guy. Why are we doing this?
Tony, there have not been many American administrations who were successful in navigating the Middle East. As a matter of fact, most of them really screwed up. I mean, George W. Bush, when he took out Saddam Hussein out of Iraq, he actually removed Iran's chief enemy out of the equation, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then we had Barack Obama during the so-called Arab Spring, pretty much supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and betraying the traditional Sunni allies of the United States and replacing them with Turkey and Qatar, who are supporting the Muslim Brotherhood all around the world, right? So one president after another, just series of geopolitical mistakes. The real answer is that all politics are local, and this election season right now we see it, right? So Iran shoots ballistic missiles in Israel. Israel wants to respond, and the Biden administration is telling Israel, listen, you can't attack right now because it will hurt the election. And I totally understand them. I totally understand their political reasoning, right? But this is again just another demonstration of every single president, whether it's Bush or Obama or now Biden, just trying to win over local constituencies and local public opinion support through the Middle East, taking the easy route, calling for ceasefires, which are fictional, and calling for two-state solutions, which nobody really believes in anymore in the region. It's complicated.
It is, and I appreciate the way you've kind of outlined it, because all the pieces are there and they're in chaos. But I believe that Donald Trump knows which side we want to be on. That's the Israeli side. And I think there comes a great deal of clarity once you decide this is who we're with. And I don't think we have the clarity. The United States does not, because at this point, and I want to bring this up to you, a lot of the Christians I speak to, and you guys, I'm on Facebook. People can follow me. My friend Cherie Curry, who I mentioned in the beginning, Cherie actually has the Israeli flag up on her Facebook right now, by the way, and she's very devoutly Christian. So my point to you is that maybe you all are signing up to support the wrong folks. Just saying, because the Christians here love y'all. I live in rural North Carolina, and I was driving on one of the highways that goes to the beach. Every quarter mile, less every mile, like for like 5 miles, there were Jewish flags at the beginning of the war on the road. People, I mean, that's how we
Tony,
respond.
let me show you chapter 14 of our book.
Yeah.
Right. Chapter 4. Why Christian Zionists love Israel. Chapter 15. Why American Jews fear Christian Zionists. There is no bigger ally for the state of Israel in the United States.
Yeah.
Than evangelicals. And I wanted to say one more thing. It's not only that evangelical Christians love the state of Israel, which they absolutely do. They love the Jewish people. If you look at who's fighting anti-Semitism, who's fighting the BDS movement, evangelical Christians.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
They are the most important ally of the Jewish people in the world. And unfortunately, American Jews, because they are on the opposite political spectrum, right? Domestically, on domestic issues, they distrust the evangelicals. It's a shame.
Sad.
These are the best friends of the Jewish people in the United States.
Yeah, I'm with you on this, and I have friends who are devoted to Israel. Devoted, have the Jewish flag, the Israeli flag up on their Facebook and support it. Now, but I want to ask that question because so much of what the progressive left and the Democrats say is not acceptable to the folks they support. For example, I love this the LGBTQ supporters of Hamas. Don't you all know they kill you? I mean, how is it you don't understand that the very thing you're talking about supporting would result in your death the moment you show up there? How is it that the Jews here don't correct the record in the Democrat Party? Why do they remain silent on that?
Well, Tony, what you see is it's coming out of the college campus once again. The people who are supporting Hamas and calling to end the genocide and all of that, which there is no genocide, they view the world in the prism of oppressors and oppressed. So if you are in the LGBTQ coalition, you view yourself as an oppressed group, and you view the Palestinians as another oppressed group. This is the coalition of the oppressed. Reality aside, reality. Don't confuse me with facts in other ways, right?
Yeah. So that's a good explanation, and I think this is where the American people, need to study this way more and understand who the good guys and bad guys are, because it's very clear. And by the way, to your point, my friend Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, they all they're fundamentalist Christians, but they love the Jewish people. They go and talk and they visit with them all the time. So it's a great place to go, and I know that there's strong fundamental support, and this is where we're going to talk more about the second part of the show, is how do we change this, because I really can't change it. We can't be more embracing than we are. It's like, hey, we're on your side here. Why don't you come over and help us politically solidify the domestic politics to help you guys solidify your future. So that's what I want to talk about the second part of the show. I'll leave it on this right now before we go. At this point, at the time we're speaking, we're just a few weeks out from election day, and the future of the Jewish state, I think, or at least the relationship between the United States and the Jewish state, is on the line, because it's very clear, in my judgment, that Kamala Harris is going to continue the wackadoodle policies of the Biden administration. And I think, as someone who has advised Trump, I spoke to him just a few weeks ago. I know his view of the Jewish state is solid, and he is not going to ever buy into the idea of giving Iran anything. So, with that said, Guy, we're going to take a quick break. On the second part of the show, we'll be continuing the conversation with Guy Golan and his book, My Brother's Keeper, with a question mark. And we'll be answering some questions regarding that. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, this is The Hard Truth with Tony Shaffer, part 2. We're still powered by 6 Hour. I had a choice of what I carried in combat. I carried the best. You should carry the best. The best is 6 Hour. Never settle. We are on the America Out Loud Talk Radio Network and the America Out Loud Podcast Network. Check us out. Check them out. Check us out. Project Sentinel, projectsentinel.com, Project PRJ_Sentinel on X. Love X. And hear the past shows on the Hard Truth with Tony.com. Can't miss. You won't miss. And of course, Cherie Curry. Shout out to Cherie and her helping us out. So we're back with Guy Golan and his book, My Brother's Keeper. So, Guy, at the break, I was hinting at some of the things I wanted to go through regarding domestic versus international politics and what that means. So I believe my friend Brigadier General Blaine Holt, we're on Newsmax all the time together. Blaine says that the focus of the Biden administration is not the 2-state solution, it's the 3-state solution. The 3 states are Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. So, and that is obviously a focus on domestic politics because they have Arab populations there that they want to have support Kamala Harris. So, do you agree? Do you think that the Biden administration right now has an unhealthy focus on trying to secure the Arab American, some would say the Hamas caucus vote?
Well, can you blame them? With less than 30 days to go, they got to win, every single vote in these swing states. Listen, this is like PR 101. How do you balance between your two most important stakeholders, right? The different parts of your coalition. Remember, American Jewish voters are a very, very important voting bloc for the Democrats, not only in terms of, bodies. I mean, there are not a lot of, most American Jews live in New York, New Jersey, California, and Florida, and 3 out of the 4 are solid blues, right? But American Jews are important because of fundraising, and also the voter turnout is much higher than pretty much any other group. So it's disproportionate in a way. Now, yes, of course, all politics are local. When Kamala Harris goes before any constituency, she wants to talk about abortion and protecting democracy and whatever else is her top issues. The last thing she wants to do is talk about geopolitics. I don't think this is an area of expertise for her.
No, it's not. But it doesn't change the fact, like you said, they got to go where the votes are. But part of the problem is their coalition is in conflict. There is no, I may be careful on my words because I don't want to get in trouble here, but there's no love between the Hamas caucus and the Jewish caucus. None, zero. And yet they're trying to keep these two very diverse, energetically opposed groups, to be polite, at kind of in their tent. I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think there's any way you can continue to have the Hamas caucus in the same tent as the Jewish caucus, because one of the two are going to kill each other. And I'm not joking about that because that's where it's all going to go. So my question to you, Guy, how do we then, who are welcoming, it's like we've been welcoming, we're, it's like, hey, come over to our tent, we're not going to be out there trying to kill you or have professors come after you. What can we do to get people on the Jewish faith to pay attention and leave that tent, to leave the tent of the Hamas caucus? What do we do?
Well, it depends what you're talking about. If you're asking how can the Republican Party attract Jewish voters?
Yeah.
Well, there is something going on within the American Jewish community. I mean, the campus violence has been a big event, an important event. Now, it's not gonna severely change how American Jews will vote in the upcoming election. If we want to take bets on air right now, on percentage of American Jews who are going to vote for Kamala Harris, I'm going to say 65. And
Wow. Yeah.
you can save the soundbite and invite me back if
We
I'm
will
right
invite you
or
back.
wrong.
That's for
There
sure.
we go.
Yeah.
Right. So it is. I predict it's going to be a little lower than traditionally. Right. Traditionally, it's 70 to 80% of the American Jewish vote. What's happening on college campuses? The fact that Jewish parents cannot send their children to Columbia University in New
No.
York City. Right.
No.
That is just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But again, with that being said, most American Jews will stay within the Democratic Party because, as I said, they live in New York and they live in New Jersey and they live in LA and they live in Boca. And sociologically, Tony, they don't know many people who support Donald Trump. They simply don't know them.
Yeah.
They're in New York and working in finance or in law or in business, or they're in Hollywood, doing movies and or doing hedge fund work. Their friends are all voting for Democrats. So sociologically, they're sociologically Democrats, and to switch over to the other side,
Yeah,
will be extremely difficult for them.
well, it's not really the other side. They see us the other side. It's like we're just trying to, President Trump said, I think it was yesterday, we're just the party of common sense. And look, I just turned 62 a few days ago, and I voted proudly at 18 for President Reagan. I had just turned 18 right before 1980's election, and at the time, and by the way, I'm going to bring this up just briefly because I think it goes back to the history of why the Democrats are so focused on the Iranians. Zygmunt Brzezinski. And by the way, I actually bought a sweater for him when I was in high school. Believe it or not, this is like I've worked for I have worked for every administration in some form except this
Oh, might just have to get
to help out. To help out with doing things. And I was actually a summer hire employee at high school because I was going to high school in Lisbon. Bought Zygmunt Brzezinski a sweater, but I digress. Because I had to go out and buy it because they were there visiting Lisbon. My point to you is that even then, Zygmunt Brzezinski was trying to convince Jimmy Carter, who just voted for Kamala, by the way. They wheeled him out. He looked like the crypt keeper from that movie. Voted for Kamala, and man, oh man, it was weird. And but they've been trying since the Carter administration to try to push U.S. interests into being partners with the Iranians. Don't get it. Don't want to get it. We don't have time to get in today. Maybe we could talk about that when you come back. My point being is that at this point, as we vote, a lot of the issues are still the same. I thought that the Republican Party is a very common sense party. I'm not I don't consider myself an extremist. I've spent a career serving our nation, and I still see our interests very much aligned with the Jews. And we worked on something called the Abraham Accords as a part of the Trump administration. Dr. Herb London and the London Center, before Trump was elected, worked on something called the Gulf and Red Sea Treaty Organization, a concept for an Arab NATO. That then translated into a wider concept that Trump picked up and ran with called the Abraham Accords, which we worked on as well. So to me, it's in the interest of the Jewish people, I would think, for the United States to act in such a way to try to create what Herb London called a condominium of cooperation between the Arab states who are now open to a peaceful relationship, a commercial relationship with the Jews. There you go. I was actually in the White House with Mark Meadows when President Trump moved the capital, the embassy to the capital, to Jerusalem. So, and he, by the way, presidents before Trump promised that over and over. Always promised it, never delivered. Trump delivered. So, my question to you is: do you think that should Trump come back, that he should pick back up the Abraham Accords and work as closely as I think he will with the Jewish state? Should he be elected?
Absolutely. Tony, most people don't understand how monumental the Abraham Accords are. I mean, Barack Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize based on potential. Donald Trump should have won the Nobel Peace Prize for bringing the first Arab Israeli peace accords since the Jordanian Accords, right? I remember when John Kerry was Secretary of State, and he said, unless you create a Palestinian state, you will never have peace with the Arabs. Boy, was he wrong. So look at what we have here. We have both the UAE, which is a super important nation, and Bahrain, and later Morocco and Sudan, all normalizing relationships with Israel.
Yeah.
And then Saudi Arabia behind the scenes really cooperating with Israel. Now you have to remember, the number one enemy of the Sunni world is not Israel. It never was Israel. There has been a Shiite Sunni civil war going on for 1,000 years. But when you look at Iraq, at Syria, at Yemen, at Northern Africa today, you see the battle between the Saudis and the Iranians.
Yep.
And when Barack Obama threw Hosni Mubarak under the bus and the Saudis under the bus and chose to align the United States with Qatar and Turkey and make deals with Iran, wow, those Sunni nations were looking for a leader to step in and bring balance again. And that's what the Abraham Accords was all about.
So one of the things that Trump did, and I was there as part of this. I actually met with Mike Pompeo on this when he first became director of CIA. As a matter of fact, my first meeting with Mike as director of CIA was right before he was going to talk to Turkey, because Mike wanted to hear more about our concept for the Gulf and Red Sea Treaty Organization. So I can tell you, Guy, that the Trump administration took this idea seriously from day one. This was not something just random, despite whatever the left says. Oh, they don't have good ideas. No. There were good ideas they came in with, and they moved out right away. So, I mean, this is what I'm telling you firsthand. It's not like this is like me hearing it. I was in the room with Mike Pompeo, and we were going through this in detail. So they moved out and obviously became Secretary of State. So he was working this up until the very end of the term. So we need to go back to it. But with that said, one of the notable features of that guy is that the Trump administration, detached any issue or linkage to bringing the Arab states together to work with Jews from the issue of Palestine. They just didn't care. It's like, we don't care. We're not going to link the resolution of the two-state solution to this larger effort to bring the Arabs, the Saudis in. And I think that was brilliant, because every other time the Democrats primarily, and George Bush 43, would always link resolution of the two-state solution to any dialogue with the Arabs or a long-term agreement. And they didn't do that. So I thought that was brilliant. What do you think?
No, absolutely. And you see this even today. Again, there is a war between Israel and Lebanon. Who is Israel fighting? Israel is fighting Iranian proxies from Iraq, from Syria, from Lebanon, from Gaza, right? And so Israel is fighting the good fight on behalf of the Sunnis. Don't forget the war between Saudi Arabia and the Houthis, sponsored by Iran. Wow, that's been going on for almost a decade.
Yeah.
I think nearly 500,000 people died in that conflict. No, 250,000 people. 250,000 people died, civilians, and more than 1 million were displaced. Right.
Yeah. So the Democrats have been trying to stop the Saudis from going and defeating the Houthi, even though the Houthi are a group that the United Nations has said is not the ruling party. They're not the ones supposed to be in charge of Yemen. It's insane.
So when the West is weak, Tony, when the West is weak, other people step in. There is no such thing as a vacuum in the Middle East. So when Obama gave up Syria, the Russians came in. When the Americans got out of Yemen, stopped sending arms to Saudi Arabia, Iran came in. This is where we are right now.
Yeah. So I'll leave it open to my colleagues to start asking some questions. Chris, you got anything you want to bring up to Guy right now, since we're talking about any number of issues relating to the future?
Well, interestingly enough, you have I actually heard Joe Biden when he was speaking. I guess it was a couple of years ago, kind of bragging about the use of the Abraham Accords. But this is, of course, after everything kind of went down in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So, and whether he kind of tried to take credit for what was going on or not, the idea was that there are people on that side who actually respected this whole thing up until, I guess, like you said, the three-state solution, if you will. This is the observation of the three-state solution when it came to Congress and, of course, the upcoming presidential election. They backed off from that. It really did. And you had Kamala Harris, and this is where the significance of Kamala Harris backing out of Netanyahu's speech in front of Congress. Whereas it's not just somebody running for president or the sitting vice president. It's the person who presides over the Senate who actually snubbed this address. That says a lot about her, where she stands, and what she would do as this Middle East conflict uh, enrages, if you will.
Well, let's talk about Bibi Netanyahu. Bibi
Yes.
Netanyahu is the
Yeah,
symbol of
that's-
everything the left absolutely hates. I mean, if American Jews
Oh yeah.
strongly dislike Benjamin Netanyahu, but they also strongly dislike Bolsonaro of Brazil. They strongly
Right.
dislike Donald Trump. It's the same kind of thing. Now, I want to bring in one more point, which most people never think about, and that is, why is Israel receiving more coverage in the West than India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh combined? And they have like population 100 times bigger, right? Israel is the only Western nation that is both proudly religious and nationalist. So on the left, those two terms are
Yes, they
terms
do.
that are considered to be problematic, right? Both
Interesting.
being
Very
patriotic and nationalist is something that's considered a bad thing, and religious is something that's considered to be bad in the American and Western left, right? And Israel is proud. I mean, look at its flag. It's got its nationality and religion. So
Mhm.
if you want to offend somebody or call somebody out, you call them in the United States, they would call you a Christian nationalist, right?
Right.
So religion and nationality are considered to be a bad thing in the United States and the West. Israel is proud of both of those things.
But at the same time, Guy, you go to the Jewish state, people are accepting there. You can be gay, you can be lesbian. If you're Arab, you're welcomed. You can't go to Arab nations like you. It's the reverse. The converse is not accepted. You can't go to Pakistan and be openly gay. You can't go to Pakistan and be a Jew and think everything's going to be just fine. So why is it then that the left demonizes Israel when that's the only place their progressive values are accepted? I don't get it.
Because facts don't matter in this argument.
Well,
Apparently,
no, but you brought this up in the first segment. The fact is, the left only sees the world history through the Howard Zinn eyes of oppressors and victims. To them, it's the Israel is the white oppressor, unfortunately.
amazing.
And the Palestinians, of course, well, they don't really want to dig into this a little bit too much, but the Arab world didn't accept them anywhere. They were kicked out of so many countries. There really was no place to go except, interestingly enough, Israel until Yasser Arafat and company made things a lot worse.
Yeah, they're not familiar. Look, the problem is they're not familiar with the facts. They don't know that about, there's a very large Arab population in Israel, and they are participating in Israel's economy. If you look at the
Right, I
number of
know.
Arab doctors, Arab pharmacists, there is a Supreme Court judge who is an Arab Muslim. Arab Muslims serve in the Israeli IDF, not a huge amount, but many.
Right.
And look, it's much easier to talk about geopolitics in terms of black and white, right? Because everything is so complicated, right? So
Yeah. Well, but Guy, look, this is why I really appreciate having you on. I'm going to have my friend Cherie Curry and others promote this to their friends because
Yes.
what we're talking about helps illustrate and give them some tools to explain why they support you all, and we do. We're not like, oh, we think you're okay. It's like, no, you guys represent civilization. And I don't understand how we don't have more conversations like this. We appreciate you being here. And like I said, I'll give it to my friends. The issue to me is this election is going to determine how we, even here, how we in the United States can provide support, direct or otherwise, to the Jewish state. And I do believe that the Abraham Accords are in the best interest of the region. And I've said this over and over. If you can get a strong diplomatic and economic relationship going between, I don't know, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, others that actually is enduring, that's the best bet to counter an aggressive Iran and the Shia. Because, and by the way, I don't think the Shia. There's a way of defeating the Shia without having to go to war. It's called the Persian people. The Persian people are fed up. with the mullahs, with the theocracy that they're subjected to. Because as you and I both know, at least ethnically, the Iranian people are much closer to the Jewish folks because they're all European. They're very focused on European thoughts and concepts. So I think we should focus on regime change. And that's a forbidden word to the progressive left and the deep state, but that's our best bet. Throw off the yoke of their own oppression and help them do it. That's the way I think of it. Should we attack? I'm not a neocon. Should we invade? No. There's nothing there. You got, the Jewish candidate, you don't have expeditionary forces, so nobody's invading anybody. With that said, the best bet is to collapse their own system on themselves, having their people do it because, they deserve better. That's my view. So do you think I'm reasonable on that, guy? Should I get into the Trump administration advisor? That's what I'm going to advise. So what do you think?
I think the Persian people deserve to have their country back from this awful dictatorship that cost them nothing but bloodshed for the last 40 years.
Bingo. Yeah.
Fair enough.
There you go. Well said.
It is about that time again, Tony.
Is it that time?
Yes, it is. And Guy, you're going to love this. So this is Tony's Takes, powered by Sig Sauer. Never settle. And we never settle for bad questions either. And by the way, as you know, Sig Sauer and Tony Shaffer know how to hold a gun, unlike Tim Walz.
Yeah.
Having said that, Tony and Guy, we'd like to get your takes too.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris skipped out of a Time magazine interview. This is significant because she did that Rappers Breakfast Club podcast.
Yeah.
This is a Time magazine, though, which printed an editorial from Democrats patting themselves on the back for fortifying the 2020 election. So I understand her maybe running away from a tougher interview, but why would she run scared from what is generally considered friendly territory?
See, she thought they were talking about Back to the Future in Time, not the Time magazine. She thought that somehow the professor was going to show up and put her in that DeLorean and take her off. So it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So she's afraid of the past, Chris. Just saying, there's certain things lurking. I won't mention Wooly Brown. Oh, I did.
She wouldn't want to hang out with Jim Ignatowski. Oh my gosh.
I don't know. He's a good actor, but Michael J. Fox, so, but no, she's afraid of a number of things. And I think that at this point, any interview which requires more than 15 IQ, she's not in for it. Just saying. So
there you go.
Guy, what do you think?
Yeah, Guy.
I'm going to skip that question.
Yeah. Well, here's something for you all. Let's go outside of the realm of the Beltway. Let's go to California.
Yeah. All right. Let's do that.
The University of California in San Diego is now requiring students to take, get this, climate change courses in order to graduate. They have required courses. Well, take some courses under this required climate change curricula, if you will, for the general education. Among these courses, Tony, that students can choose to take under this forced indoctrination are documenting climate change, past and present, writing about climate change, politics of environmental change, get this, gender and climate justice, and water. What's your take on that, Tony?
So, look, I'm convinced that all hurricanes are the ghost of women who died violently. That's my as a climate scientist, I believe there's ghosts of women in those storms, and they're out for revenge, right? I think that would be supported by all the women's movement, right? They're all upset about the women not being represented. So must be hurricanes. Must be. That's why hurricanes are getting worse, because the violence against women has gotten worse. Don't you think?
I would go with that too. I mean, look back. It was only a few years ago where somebody threw a shoe at Hillary Clinton.
That's right. See, these are the Salem witches coming back for vengeance, Chris.
That's right.
We should have can you track down a psychic and have her on so we can ask? Maybe we can do a seance and hear about the storm's stories.
I know a few, but I don't want them knowing what I'm thinking. So that's the whole thing. But yes. Yeah, nobody wants to know what I'm thinking. Ouch.
That's right. That's good.
Are you touching this one with a 10-foot pole, Guy?
I know. So, Guy, I got a degree in environmental studies, and the things that they talk about to me are very dangerous, because CO2 is not our enemy; it's our friend. And if we want renewables, nuclear energy is the way to go. So I don't want to get you in trouble, but those are the things that I've come to as a conclusion. So,
I'll just tell you one thing that was really interesting to me. I found out last month that the state of California is importing coal from Idaho.
I know, isn't that great? I'm a big train. I love trains, big train, and so you have these long BNSF trains coming out of Oregon down
There you
into
go.
California. I know it's kind of strange, huh? So just a pro note to the audience: all green energy requires fossil fuel. Just saying, that's it is what it is. So anything else, Chris, before we go?
Well, let's see. A quick one. Quick
Quick one.
one.
Quick one.
60 Minutes won't release that unedited Kamala Harris tape. I mean,
No.
think about that. I have my takes
Hmm.
on it, but it's not enough time for that. Let's hear yours.
So I think for part of the interview, they brought in Maya Rudolph, and she did a better job. So that's why they're getting out that Maya came in and actually had to do a tag team with Kamala. They're so interchangeable too, by the way.
They
You got
quite,
that picture of you still got her up? Can you bring up Maya for
I
the
could pull.
audience here, for those who are watching?
Yeah, I could pull that up for you. Yeah, she actually does a better. Uh, she actually does a better Harris than Harris.
I
That's what
know
I
she's
think.
better. That's right.
Yeah,
So
she's. So here we go. Let's see.
yeah,
We
here
got this one right here. This is beautiful. I like her. She was funny really during that early campaign, the 2020 campaign.
yeah,
That was she kind of really captured her.
there she
And
is. That's
nowadays,
right.
and I love Gaffigan as Walls.
I do. I love Dana Carvey as Joe.
Oh yeah,
So and
that's
she's
Well,
good.
don't
She's good.
don't forget Larry David as
Oh yeah,
Bernie. I think he's the
that was
master of
great.
them all.
he's better at Bernie than Bernie.
That's right. He was
Absolutely.
a fantastic Bernie. I always like Chevy Chase's Ford, which he resurrected in
I
1985
know.
too.
I know.
Yeah.
I think he was good on that. He just didn't look like him, but I'm
No,
sure he does now. I'm sure he
yeah.
does
Now,
now, though.
now he does. Yeah.
Now he
Well, what
does.
was it? Randy Quaid did a good Reagan.
Randy does do it. Well, Randy, didn't he play Reagan?
Yeah. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, Randy. No, was it
Which
Dennis
Quaid are we
Quaid?
talking?
Yeah,
Dennis.
Dennis
Dennis
Quaid.
played Reagan.
Yeah, Randy was more the comedy
Randy and
guy.
Randy and I are friends. I should have Randy come on the show sometime.
That would be fun. I'd like
Yeah,
that.
I'm gonna ask him. I'll ask him because he's a bit wacky. Just saying, but he's a good wacky. He's our
He'll
kind
fit
of wacky.
right in. There we
He
go.
would fit right in. So I'll reach out to him, see if I can get him to come on. So anyway, but in the meantime, Guy, thank you for being on here with us. We've really enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
So anyway, people, run out. Don't walk, run out and buy My Brother's Keeper with a question mark. I think you're going to find a lot of very helpful information that'll help inform us how we can help them, the folks who need to have support and faith. We all believe in the same God, so we should be working together to preserve Western civilization as best we can. So, Guy, we'd like to have you come back, especially after the election, because one way or another things are going to change, either for good or for bad. They're going to change, right?
I'll look forward to it. Absolutely.
Great. Thanks, Guy. And thank you
Bye-bye.
all for being here for another episode of The Hard Truth. We'll be back again next week with another action-packed episode. No people jumping out of airplanes, but, next best thing is having great conversation, right? So until then, we'll see you.